What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to find the percent of a number. And there's a couple key words that you have to look out for, and those are these three over here. I'll tell you what each one actually means. All right, so whenever you see what or what number, that's talking about the unknown number that we're looking for, basically the answer, okay? Of means multiply, and then is means equal to. So we're basically going to replace these words with these symbols right here, and we're going to end up just making a little equation that's a lot easier to solve than trying to figure out what this question is asking, because again, they ask it in so many different ways, it gets really confusing. So write this down, remember it, tattoo it to your forehead, whatever you have to do to remember it. Okay, so let's start with this first example. So it says, what is 35% of 90? Okay, so again, what means the number we're looking for, right? So I'm just going to put the variable, and we're going to use n, okay? Is, again, is means equal to 35%. Now, whenever you see a percent in these problems, you have to write it as a decimal. That's very important. Okay, so how do you write 35 as a decimal? Well, a quick little trick to do that is just ignore the percent sign for a second. Now we just have the number 35, right? Where is the decimal here? Well, it would be right there, right? So then all you have to do is take your decimal and move it 2 times to the left. So 1, 2, boom, right there. Okay, so now you can see we have 0.35, right? And I'll write it as 0.35. Okay, so 35% as a decimal is 0.35, okay? Now let's fill in the rest. So then the next word is of. So of means multiply, right? So multiply 90. So we're going to multiply by 90. Okay, so the number we're looking for is equal to 0.35 times 90. Okay, so we just have to multiply this decimal times this whole number. And in case you don't remember how to do that, a simple way of doing it is just ignoring your decimal for a second and then just multiplying these whole numbers together. So we're going to multiply 35 times 90. Okay, so 35 times 90. What does that equal to? Well, 5 times 0 is 0, and then 0 times 3 is 0. Okay, so we're done there, and then we'll put another 0 right there. And then 9 times 5 is 45. 45, just barely fit it up there. And then 9 times 3 is 27, right? And then 27 plus 4 is 31. 31. And then the last thing is just adding these up. Sorry, it's a little crooked. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. We just have a 1 here, and we just have a 3 here. Okay, now we're going to come back to our multiplication problem right here. Remember, we do have a decimal right there, right? So how many decimal numbers do we have in total here? Well, let's see. We have 1, 2, and there's no decimal numbers on 90. So we only have 2 decimal numbers. So since we have 2 decimal numbers, we're going to come to the end of our answer right here and move 2 decimal places to the left. So 1, 2, right there. So that's where your decimal goes, okay? So your answer right here is actually 31.50. So then I'll write it over here. So n is equal to 31.50. So what is 35% of 90? 31.50, okay? Or if you wanted to, you could also write this as just 31.5, okay? You don't need to put trailing zeros if you don't have to, okay? So hopefully that wasn't too bad. Let's just try a couple more examples, and then I think it's going to start coming together a little bit more. All right, so this next example says 24 is 60% of what number? Okay, so I'm going to write this out using my rule. So 24, that's just 24, is, let's see, is means equal to, so 24 is equal to 60%. So again, to turn this into a decimal, you just ignore the percent sign. Remember that your decimal is always at the end over here, and then just move it 2 times to the left. So we're going to go 1, 2, right there, okay? So then your decimal would be 0.60, 0.60, and I'll put my 0 right there. And again, you don't need trailing zeros, so if you wanted to get rid of this 0 right there, that'd be okay too, okay? Because 0.60 is the same thing as just 0.6, okay? And then of means multiply, right? So we're going to multiply by some number n. Okay, so now the little equation we have here is 24 is equal to 0.6 times n. So remember, we're trying to solve for n right here. So that means we need to isolate this variable by itself on one side of the equal sign, right? And this is, equal sign is right here. Okay, so in order to do that, as you can see, we're multiplying, right? 0.6 times n. So in order to undo this multiplication right here, I need to divide, okay? What am I going to divide by? Whatever I'm trying to get rid of. So if I want to keep the n, that means I have to get rid of this 0.6, right? So I'm going to divide by 0.6. But if you remember, whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other, right? So I need to divide by 0.6 on this side also. Okay, so now let me simplify some things. So this 0.6 on top and on the bottom are going to cancel out. So I'm just going to be left with n on this side of the equation. And then that's going to be equal to 24 divided by 0.6. 24 divided by 0.6. Okay, so in order to solve my problem, all I need to do is solve this little division problem right here. So we're going to do 24 divided by 0.6. Okay, now how do you divide a decimal? Well, the first thing you need to do is actually get rid of your decimal. So this decimal right here, I actually have to move it to the right one time, okay? So instead of having 0.6, now this is just going to turn into 6, right? So that's how you get rid of the decimal. But if you do it to one number, you also have to do it to your other number in here, okay? So where's your decimal on the 24? Well, it's at the end over here, right? So if we move this decimal one time, we also have to move this decimal one time, okay? And we have an empty place value right here. So in order to fill in the blank, you just put a 0 right there, okay? So instead of having 24, this turned into 240. Okay, so let me rewrite my division problem. So 0.6 turned into 6, and then we're going to divide that into 240. Okay, so 6 doesn't go into 2, but it does go into 24. How many times? Exactly 4 times, right? And then 4 times 6 is 24. You subtract, you get a 0, and then you bring this 0 down. 6 goes into 0 times, right? And then 0 times 6 is 0. You subtract, and you have no remainder. So 240 divided by 6 is equal to 40, right? Or in other words, 24 divided by 0.6 is equal to 40. So 40 is equal to n. Okay, so going back to the original problem, 24 is 60% of what number? 40, okay? 24 is 60% of 40. So this would be your answer. Now, let's go to the next example. So this one says, what percent of 36 is 9? Okay, so remember, whenever you see what, that means n, right? And normally we want to know what number, but in this case it says what percent. Okay, so remember, this n has to be written as a percent at the end. Okay, so then the rest of the problem says of, so of means multiply, multiplied by 36, is, and then is means equal to, and then 9, right? So n times 36 is equal to 9. Okay, so again, we want to isolate our variable right here. So we need to get rid of this times 36. So in order to get rid of it, we're going to divide by 36. Okay? And what you do to one side of an equation, you do to the other, right? Now, these 36's cancel each other out. So on this side of the equation, I'm just left with n. And then that's equal to, right, equal to 9 over 36. 9 over 36. Right, so n is equal to 9 over 36. Can we simplify this anymore? We actually can, right, because the top and the bottom are both divisible by 9. Okay, so what's 9 divided by 9? 1. What's 36 divided by 9? 4. Okay, so then n is equal to 1/4, and I'll write that over here. n is equal to 1/4. Now, is this our final answer? No, because remember, it asks what percent, right? 1/4 is a fraction. This is not a percent, this is a fraction. So how do you convert a fraction to a percent? Well, first you have to turn it into a decimal, and then we can turn the decimal into a percent. Okay, so how do you turn a fraction into a decimal? Well, we just have to divide these, right? So 1/4 is the same thing as 1 divided by 4, okay? So 4 doesn't go into 1, right? So that means we have to put a decimal and a 0, okay? So then 4 goes into 10 how many times? 2 times. And then 2 times 4 is 8, and then you subtract. 10 minus 8 is equal to 2, right? And then we don't have anything over here, so we'll put another 0, so we can bring that down. Now, 4 goes into 20 how many times? 5 times. And then 5 times 4 is 20. You subtract 20 minus 20, and we have no remainder, right? So our answer up here is almost complete. The last thing you have to remember to do is grab your decimal and just bring it straight up to your answer right there. Okay, so your answer right here is 0.25, or more properly written, it'd be 0.25, okay? So 1/4 written as a decimal is 0.25, okay? And I'll write that right here. So now n is equal to, instead of 1/4, I'll put 0.25. Okay, now how do you turn a decimal into a percent? Well, all you have to do is grab the decimal and move it 2 times to the right. Okay, so we'll go 1, 2. So that's where your decimal goes. Okay, so instead of having 0.25, we're going to have 25. So your answer would be 25%. All right, there's your final answer. So going back to the original problem, what percent of 36 is 9? 25%. Okay, now let's do the last problem. And this is normally the last way you'll see this kind of question asked. Okay, so here the problem says 54 is what percent of 27? Okay, so let's write this out. So it's going to be 54, and then is means equal to what percent. So again, in the other problems, it asks what number, but in this case, it says what percent. So our final answer has to be in a percent, okay? So keep that in mind. And then it says of, right? So multiply 27. Okay, so here we have 54 is equal to n times 27. So again, since we're trying to isolate the n, we need to get rid of this times 27. So we're going to divide by 27. And we have to do it on both sides, right? Okay, so these 27s cancel out. So I'm just left with n on this side of the equation right here. So then I'll put n. So that's equal to 54 over 27. 54 over 27. So again, this is not our final answer, right? We have to turn this into a percent. But first of all, can we reduce this anymore? Well, actually we can, because if you notice something, 54 is twice as big as 27. So that means I can divide the bottom by 27 and the top by 27. Okay, so 54 divided by 27 is 2, and then 27 divided by 27 is 1. So 2 over 1 is equal to n. But 2 over 1, we can reduce that down to just 2, right? 2 is equal to n. Okay, now can we turn 2 into a percent? Well, actually we can, because let's just go to the last example. How do you turn a decimal to a percent? All you have to do is find the decimal and then move it 2 times to the right, okay? So where is the decimal on this 2 right here? Well, it would be right there, right? So then all we have to do is move it 2 times, 1, 2, to the right, okay? And then as you can see, we have 2 blank spots right here. So again, whenever you have blank place values like that, you just put zeros right there, okay? So now here, instead of having 2, we have 200. So our answer as a percent would be 200%. Okay, so the question asked, 54 is what percent of 27? It's 200% of 27. So that is how you find the percent of a number. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below. Also, there's a couple playlists attached that I think you'll find helpful, so definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.